All right, good morning, all, and welcome to All Falcons. I'm Scott Kennedy, and this is Nick Kendall, the travel-weary Nick Kendall, who spent part of the holiday season in Iowa, and had the fun travel of coming back from the Midwest. Now,
Oh, man.
quick story on this, Nick, before I let you go. So I think it was around 2000, at one of the errands, the dot bomb eras, and I had just lost my job right before Christmas. And we were flying up to Ohio on the 23rd for my cousin's wedding. And Delta's offering, we'll give you $300 for your seat. We'll give you $500 for your seat. They got up to $1,500 for if you will fly tomorrow. I looked at my mom. I was there with my mom and dad and my wife. And I looked over. I said, so you can pick us up at the airport tomorrow. The wedding wasn't until the afternoon. They're like, yep. I said, okay, see you tomorrow. $3,000 for the two of us. I'm like, shoot. That was a month's wage. I flew on that for the whole next year. So travel in the Midwest, especially when the weather starts getting bad, and the other end around Christmas can be rough. So glad you're doing okay.
Yeah, it was rough. Also, we got a big snowstorm in Seattle, which we had to push our flight back a day because there were 80-mile-an-hour winds in Iowa and the Midwest, and then flying back, we had a snowstorm in Seattle. I had a hard time even getting up our street in Seattle. Everybody's like, "Oh, you can't drive. You can't handle a little snow in Seattle." We don't have any of the infrastructure. They own 3 snow plows, no salt. So when it does snow, and it's a really hilly city as well. So when it does snow, everything just shuts down. And I kind of rolled my eyes at it when
I know I'm in the South, and I got a little irritated with the Californians that would make fun of the people in the South, especially the last one. Oh, a couple inches of snow and you guys lose your minds. Well, what we get here, we get the ice. We get the ice storms are what gets you. And it's like when a 4-wheel drive truck is sliding sideways off of a road, I don't care how good or prepared you are, you're in trouble. And plus, I see how you idiots act when it rains in California, in Los Angeles. So don't give me any crap about the snow and ice and sleet in Georgia. A little bit of a somber note to get started. And Ethan coming in, he's kicking us off here with the big super. Appreciate you, DWI guys. Ethan in London. They play today, by the way. Chelsea, 2:30 Eastern time. Should be about 7:30 in London. Must win match today. I'm all Chelsea'd up. So, but a little bit of a somber note. For rivalries aside, the Raiders coach, but I don't think anybody hardly even remembers him except AFC West guys as the Raiders coach. John Madden passed away. A legend of this game, of this sport, of the entertainment industry. I'm old enough to remember when Fox went and bought, Fox was this fledgling network that's throwing off The Simpsons and, crazy shows as they're just getting started. And then they went big on the NFL and says, this is going to launch our network. And John Madden and Pat Summerall, may he rest in peace as well, doing the national games on Fox and really helping to launch Fox. Launching a video game franchise. I used to play 92 Madden. Nick, were you even born in 92?
That is the year of my birth.
Okay. So I think it was, I don't think that wasn't the first one. I think it was the second or third, but I used to play the 92 Madden franchise. And just, he was a little bit of a caricature of himself at times, but you didn't mind, you didn't mind. It's like you never questioned his love and excitement and genuine passion for the game of football, no matter who was playing. It's like you never say, oh, this John Madden guy is biased. You hear that about some of the former players. I couldn't stand listening to Bill Walsh when he was on because everything he always said was, well, when we had this guy with the 49ers, and when I was with the 49ers, and when I was with the 49ers, I was like, okay, enough. We get it. We get it. When you gave Madden crap, it was because he was goofy about the game, which endeared him to all of us. And certainly gonna miss him, but not his impact on the game itself.
Yeah, football would not be what it is today. I mean, hell, I might not even be here today if it wasn't for John Madden and those video games as well. I remember hours upon hours. I mean, Midwest, you're talking about Midwest winters, hours upon hours playing Madden in my room, combing over rosters, memorizing the rookie classes and where these guys went to college and their specs and redraft. I mean, just unbelievable amount of time and team building too in those video games. I would just sim seasons because I would team build.
I know I would too. I was one of those guys. I'd play maybe one season and then I was simming after that. I wanted to be the team building part of it too. I was so absolutely fun. The same way.
Yep, and I'd play the big games, like, but I wouldn't play like this Falcons Lions game that we're talking about right now. Probably would sim past that one. Sorry, guys. But even if I was the Bills, maybe sim past the next one too. But it was a lot of fun, and gosh, unfortunately, I did see a lot of, I think Twitter and just social media in general kind of props up takes that are inflammatory. Like, let's put the thing that's going to make you the most irritated in front of you. And I saw some pretty terrible takes on Twitter yesterday about Madden and his legacy and football in general. And there's some clips of him out there talking about concussions, like how, like, in boxing, when a guy gets knocked out, he can't train again for like another month. And in football, they're like, you're okay, go back in there. And then he doesn't think
I
that's
actually
right.
think it's worse. I've said
Yeah.
about, not to get too off subject here, but said about, like, MMA to me is safer. I've talked about taking the helmets off of football.
Yeah.
To me, MMA is like boxing as football is to rugby, where you're more likely to get your nose broken or your arm broken or injured in MMA.
Yeah.
But in boxing, if I knock you out and concuss you, knock you down, but if you can get up in 8 seconds, we're going again. Man, that's that. How insane does that sound at this point?
It is insane. But RIP John Madden. Great. He was football for Monday night and the video game fantasy or franchise for me well before the Raiders. I didn't even know about the Raiders until, like, I was like, I guess I have to hate him because I'm a Bronco fan. But I couldn't do it.
And sometimes, I kind of say this about ESPN. ESPN is more about ESPN than they are about the games they cover. And if it weren't for the games they cover, there wouldn't be an ESPN. So at times Madden became bigger than the game itself, but he never took that seriously. He was just an endearing, genuine soul. And I'm thankful that he was, that he reached the heights that he did and the platform that he did, because again, we're certainly going to miss him. Like I said, not to go off on too much of a somber note. So I want to say hello. Let me get into a quick couple matters of business here,
and thanks to Ethan. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and $50, obviously, yes. Thanks to Ethan. Some of the things I want to get into in the next 45 minutes or so. Just a quick look back at the Falcons Lions. Foye Oluokun was just named NFC Defensive Player of the Week. I want to talk about his impact, his worth, because he is a free agent at the end of this season. We'll do a quick Bills preview. I saw some questions coming in on this one earlier. I want to talk Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn is going to be applicable to a lot of franchises over the course of the next month. He could be linked to as many as 8 to 10 teams, and I think he will be a head coach again in 2022. Is that a good thing for your team? I want to get into that just a little bit, and just because of who we are, Nick and I, obviously, we're going to talk a little bit of draft and free agency and team building. But Clee came in early, always supporting us, saying Happy New Year with the super to the channel. Certainly appreciate it. Let's see. EJ came in, said good morning, crew. Good morning, crew. Good morning to you, EJ. Thanks for being here. Keith Robbins saying what's up, guys, over on Facebook. Appreciate you being here, Keith. And then let's see. Ray came in. Ray saying what's up, and also saying rest in peace, John Madden. Absolutely. Carl, do you think the Falcons have a chance to win in Buffalo? No, I don't. But we'll get into that here in a little bit. So, Carl, if that was the only question you had, you can tune out now.
No, they got a chance. They got a chance.
I don't think they stand a chance, a snowball's chance in a 4th of July Georgia asphalt in heck of winning this game.
I think they got a chance.
I'm ranked 113 in Madden, and all I use is the Falcons.
Wow.
That was good the one year that they overpowered Michael Vick around 2004, 2002. I don't remember what it was, but that was one of those. We made him a little too good in Michael Vick. My game, I played Madden, but I was a 95 hockey game. EA Sports NHL hockey. And I don't say this lightly. If they had e-games at the time, I would have been nationally ranked and I would have made a living on that hockey game. Because that's what I did in college was drink beer and play hockey.
NCAA football. So many. It's coming back too. I'm so excited.
and Keith saying any given Sunday. Yep. Obviously, there's never a chance.
If Josh Allen played like he did against the Patriots, you guys probably lose by 40. That's how good he was. But Josh Allen is a high variance quarterback. So if he has a stinker game, you got a chance. I mean, there's only Josh Allen.
That for sure. Joe coming in. Joe, appreciate you being here. Says the Madden franchise such a terrible homage to John Madden. They have done an awful job of maintaining, improving the game. I always wonder how much more can you do based on the technology. You know, the fact is that they can still sell them once a year. Is just what a business model.
Yeah.
We'll change a couple of the names and we'll make a little bit of code change. And we're gonna get everybody for another $60 every single year. Man, what a franchise.
Yeah, the issue with Madden is that they have not had competition. They have an exclusive rights deal with the NFL. So they're pretty much fine just changing the nameplates on the jerseys and having a similar game year after year. And I haven't bought a Madden since 2016 because of that. Because heck, I can just update the rosters myself. Patrick Surtain, I can just make him. I don't need you to do that for $60 every year. So that's the biggest issue with Madden. And also a lot of it is they've started to kind of focus on the Madden Ultimate Teams, where it's like that downloadable content, those microtransactions where a lot of money is made. So that's definitely an issue with Madden, but that's true with sports games in general. So I definitely hear what you're saying, Joe. But I'm going to lean into this now nostalgia today because, man, those Madden franchises from like 2004 to 2012, probably, I can't even tell you how many hours. Can't even tell you. Oh, my God. I used to love to create the teams, too. The Des Moines Silverbacks. That was a team I made a lot of like the black and the slime green. It was a good time.
I played for sports. I played FIFA, hockey, and I played NCAA when I played football. I played NCAA more than I played Madden.
Who was your team?
You know, I like the recruiting, you know, the team building and the simulation, that kind of stuff. And Jeremy, good morning. Appreciate you being here. So let's get into it here just a little bit. You know, look back at the Lions game. I said coming in that this was no gimme by any stretch of the imagination. And frankly, beating the 2-12-1 Lions was actually one of the better wins of the season. This team had just beaten Minnesota Vikings, who were sitting in a playoff spot. They had gone out to Denver and lost with half a team based on injuries and reserve COVID injury lists. They went out there seriously with about half their team, and then came back and came home and put a pretty good whooping on the Arizona Cardinals. This was no gimme, and we saw that it was a back and forth game. It was a close game. I think the Falcons are now 7-2 in one-win games. So if you look across the board and you pull up the stats, and I Google search Falcons record by year ref, so it sends me to Sports Reference. If you look across the numbers, they've gotten worse across the board. Yards, points given up, yards given up, across the board, takeaways, giveaways. It's worse, but their record is 5 games, is 4-12. They're at 7 now, so it's already 3-game improvement. That's coaching. You know, that's the coaching and the belief in this team. Because why have they gotten worse? Because the roster's even worse. The roster has gotten worse than it was last year, and it wasn't a great roster last year. So this team has serious problems. It really does. And we can get into that as well when we start talking team building and we get into the offseason. But going out and beating these bad teams, well, the Falcons haven't beaten anybody. Man, until you beat those nobodies, you are a nobody. And you've beaten all of them. So 7-8, hats off. This has been a terrific job by Arthur Smith and the Atlanta Falcons. I've been very pleased with what I've seen based on what I know about this team.
Yeah, I'm very much a Jimmy's and Joe's versus the X's and O's kind of guy, and I think Bill Belichick would agree as well. There's a good interview out there of him talking about it, where scheme is like 10%. Scheme and coaching is like 10 to 15% of the outcome. The rest of it is the talent on the roster. And you hit the nail on the head. Dean Pease and Arthur Smith, hats off to them, because this Falcons roster across the board is very devoid of talent in a lot of key spots. I think, honest to God, without Matt Ryan, you are competing for the number 1 overall pick. And it's not that Matt Ryan has been incredible, but I don't think there's him or Trevor Lawrence are in the worst situation in football structurally around them with the talent. The right tackle is an issue. The left guard is an issue. The wide receivers you wouldn't have. I mean, if you put any of those Falcons wide receivers on the Broncos, none of them would be above wide receiver 4. That's just the reality of it. And then the defense also absolutely dreadful. I don't know if you saw the link I shared yesterday, but there is a graphic that has ESPN's win rate for the trench play, and then Pro Football Focus's grade for the trench play. The 2 worst teams in football on the defensive trenches for running and passing defense, the Broncos and the Falcons, across the board. And the Falcons are even like an outlier as far as the pass rush. So that's how bad they are. And it's a team that needs a lot of help. And I know that we're going to talk a lot of team building this offseason. I don't think I'm going to change my mind. This is a team that just needs to rip the Band-Aid off and just accept the dead money and be like, 2023, let's just go have fun, because like what the Lions are doing this year, go bite some kneecaps off. The results are the results. But I think you have the right coach in place with Arthur Smith, because he is maximizing the absolute bleep out of what they have on paper.
Yeah, and I think you can do that with a young first and second year coach. Again, give him the time, give him the patience, because if you're honest about what you see on this team, I've said before, I said there's probably 8 NFL guys on this roster. The rest are at best below average.
Yep.
And the 8, speaking of, and that's giving Deion Jones a benefit of the doubt based on where he's been, because he hasn't been playing at that level at an average above level for most of the season. But on defense, I said Grady Jarrett, Deion, Foye, and AJ Terrell. And Deion's a maybe. On the other side of the ball, I say Ryan, Patterson, Pitts, and Lindstrom. Man, that's it. That's it. Jake Matthews is fair. And if you put anything into Pro Football Focus, he's still below average there, but he's top 5 paid. So you want to talk about getting kneecapped? Good gracious.
Yeah. Can you get to Clee's comment here real quick? I don't have the ability to click it. The one at 718. But I thought the Broncos were only a quarterback away.
I thought the Broncos were only a QB away.
I think this is funny, because the Broncos have holes, no doubt about it. The right tackle, some issues. Offensive line got kneecapped. Talking a lot of kneecaps today. And the defensive line needs a lot of work as well. But the Broncos are still probably a quarterback away. And that just shows how important the quarterback is. If you're talking Aaron Rodgers, you could put him on half the teams in the league and they'd be a quarterback away. But that's just really how impactful the quarterback is. If you're like weighting a roster, and I'm probably going to work on a formula this offseason, just kind of to rank each roster and by positional value, I think I'm going to use the quarterback as 40% of the value of the whole team, because that's how important.
Well, that's close to how much Matt Ryan's cap hit is.
Yeah.
It's about 25%. And Ethan coming back in again with a super. Appreciate you, Ethan. Franchise Patterson or try to sign him before free agency. What price is $3 million? Won't cut it again. You don't franchise him. No way. No. That's in the 15 to 17 million range, I believe, would probably put him up there. As a running back, you'd franchise him as a running back. His agent would say as a wide receiver, which would put him in the 20 million range. As a running back, might knock it down to 12 to 15, but no, it wouldn't take that much. You could double him to 6. And you can even the Falcons, I think, can scrape enough money between their couch cushions and find money to make him to 6, because you can get out from under Mike Davis. And I love Mike Davis. This is a fairly easy team to root for the most part. Mike Davis is a big smile. He's a Georgia kid. He's from Stevenson High School in Stone Mountain, not too far from the Dome. Big in the community, but he has a small dead cap number next year. And he's been not very productive. And I don't blame him all the time. Every time I see Mike Davis, he's trying to make guys miss or trying to break a tackle 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. But you could take the 3 you're paying him, send that to Patterson next year and draft a 4th round running back and get the same type of production for 200, 300, 400 grand.
Yeah.
So definitely not the way I would go on that way with Patterson. But I think you have to have Patterson back. I really do. If he wants to come back, he says all the right things and he plays the game with a smile on his face and he's having the best season of his career. But he's 31 years old and he might want to try and test the market and see if he can go to a winner as well. But he's in a good situation with the Falcons and we love him here in Atlanta. I mean, talk about, he's got that, I call it a megawatt smile. He does everything with this big, bright smile. It just makes you, man, I love this guy. And the way he plays so hard.
He must have been you probably remember this. Was he a really, really highly rated recruit?
He was a junior college guy, and it was fun because I was doing junior college by myself at Scout, so I didn't have to deal with anybody else. When I was at the top of that food chain, basically my job was to try and keep everybody getting too mad. It's like the West guy is going to be mad because I didn't rate his guy high enough, and the UCLA guy is going to be mad because they're recruits. So junior college, I got to do just all by myself. Mm-hmm. And I think my friend and sort of a mentor in this business, if he ever watches again, was Tom Culpepper. I think he's the one that showed me Cordero Patterson at junior college and 5 stars. So I put 5 stars next to his name. But what was interesting about him at the time, he only played on the side of his coaches. So he was a wide receiver in junior college.
Earshot.
And he only played on their side. So he'd be, if you're watching him on the far side of the field in the first half, when they changed sides, he was on the far side of the field in the second half. So he was always on the coach's side when he was in junior college before going to Tennessee.
Interesting. Well, I have NCAA football with Tim Tebow on the cover, and he's in that game. And boy, he's a lot of fun to play with Tennessee. I kind of want Tennessee to be good again. I like the stadium and the uniforms there. It's a fun program, and also a lot of good recruiting talent there. Tennessee should rise again. We'll see what happens. Clee also had a super chat before we even started, saying Happy New Year. $5 up at the very top. So thank you, Clee, so much. I wanted to make sure to give you a shout out if you're going to be supporting us like that. We really appreciate it.
Yep, and but back to the Lions. In this winning mentality, they mentioned it. I think Mike Rothstein from ESPN asked the question and then turned it into an article, and I've seen it picked up on. It's just trying to make a winning culture. And winning these close games is a big thing because, again, all of the metrics say that this team has gotten worse, except the record. Now that is not sustainable. It's not sustainable. You're only going to get about this high before some of those start going the other direction. And a couple of those kicks or an interception, maybe Boyle doesn't, maybe Oluokun doesn't make that play. And the Falcons can't help themselves but to try and go and Falcon away a game. Russell Gage fumbling that ball, and I just laughed. I was like, it's every time. I said, but
draft picks
also are playing one of the other poverty franchises in the league in the Detroit Lions. So there's no guarantee that they're going to cash this in. If that was the Packers or the Cowboys or the 49ers or one of the blue blood teams, the Buccaneers right now, that game's over. The Falcons just pissed it away. But it was the Lions. And they're going to try and give it back to you just as much as you try to give it to them and try and Falcon the game away.
Yeah, and looking at the metrics for this game, just the stats, you guys lost so many key areas that it's surprising that you won. I mean, the Lions absolutely owned the heck out of possession to you guys, 38-22, which is insane. They outgained you on the ground 130-47. And in general, the third down conversions, you guys are 2 for 8 versus 7 for 16. They ran 68 plays versus your 45. A lot of those things are like, wow, Lions probably should have beat you guys. And that's with Tim Boyle at quarterback. So sorry to, be irritated. And you guys didn't even win the turnover battle. How did this game turn out to be the Falcons in the end? Red zone trips, 0 for 4 from the Lions in the red zone. You got to be able to score points when you get down there, and the Lions were not able to do that. Yeah, that's been an issue with Jared Goff also. But I guess congrats. That's a good coaching as well. Good situational coaching, good situational football to make the Lions go 0 for 4. And that's enough sometimes to these small margins in the NFL to win the game.
So it was, again, the Lions aren't a good team. They're better than their record for sure. I think 2-2 over the course of the last 4 is more indicative of what type of team they are than 2-14 seems to suggest right now. But again, as Jeremy does say, because it was the Lions. I'm like, I tweeted that to a friend of mine as we were saying, or I was actually on Twitter at the time. I'm like, and I almost retweeted the last one. I said, the Falcons just can't help themselves. They have to try and give it away at the end of every game. It's just in our DNA. It's painful. You just wait for it. But it's the Lions. They're a team like the Falcons, so there's no guarantee that they're going to take advantage of it. So you're still in this thing. So I still had hope. Again, if it was one of the blue blood programs, it was over. The teams that take advantage of those type of errors and don't make those type of mistakes in the fourth quarter. Going back to Joe. Thanks, Joe. I looking forward to tonight to see the update on Facebook on Mile High Huddle, because you've been just awesome supporting our shows this month. So we'll see you tonight as well. But Joe comes in and says, I believe in the idea that you're not close to competing for a championship, then you need to blow it up. But how can you blow up this roster? I assume you trade cut Ryan, but what else can be done to start the rebuild? That's a good question. I think there might be 23 or 24 guys on that are signed right now. The problem is 4 or 5 of them are in the top 2 or 3 in their positions.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan has a huge contract and a huge dead cap number. Is he worth that? No. Is he the biggest problem on this team? No. He's at least playing at an average or above average level. Jake Matthews has a huge dead cap number, and if you were to get rid of him, it would cost you more to see him play somewhere else. So you're kind of stuck there.
Deion Jones, if you
Deion Jones has a huge dead cap number. The one thing and what's upsetting when you're trying to look at the rebuild is like your best options are to extend a couple of these guys. Now, one, Grady Jarrett, you want to have Grady Jarrett around a couple more years. A contract extension would give you some cap relief. Matt Ryan, a contract extension would give you some cap relief, but now you're pushing him into his age 40 season. Do you really want to do that? Now, if you can survive one more year, 2022, if you can survive 2022, Arthur Blank, Terry Fontenot, and Arthur Smith are playing with monopoly money in 2023. That's when so much of this money comes off the books, including Julio Jones, who has a $15 million dead cap number for the Falcons next year. We'll see what they do with Calvin Ridley, whose option was picked up for next year at $11 million, but the Falcons are not obligated to pay that because he's on the non-football injury list. And I don't think it vests. So I think they could keep him on the 1.7 or 2 that he's on now. But that's $26 million in receivers that aren't on the team right now. And one's definitely not coming back in Jones. And the other one. So, again, I assume you can trade and cut Ryan, but what else can you do to start the rebuild? Trade back, accumulate draft picks, accumulate as many draft picks as you can. The number 2 pick for Julio Jones right now looks like a bargain. He's not playing at all. Can't stay on the field. More of that. You try and trade back. And that was what I said last year. Kyle Pitts, that was before I knew that Julio Jones was leaving. I was not a big fan of the Kyle Pitts pick at the time because you had Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley. Well, thank God they have Kyle Pitts now because you don't have Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley. But I was an advocate for trading back because if you can get 3 picks for that pick, you need 3 players. What do you think?
I'm looking at the Falcons 2022 cap, and I really am a proponent that you just bite the bullet and eat that $40 million dead cap for Matt Ryan and bounce hard off of the floor next year in 2023. And I think that coincides well with transitions that are going to be happening in this division. I think the Saints might be losing their defensive coordinator. They have a lot of age on their defense as well with the dead cap. You don't have forever with Tom Brady. Knock on wood. Who the hell knows? I guess with that guy. And then also the Panthers are likely coming up to a transition here. I don't think Rule is going to last much longer based on the trajectory of that team. So I am of the idea that you really just bite the bullet this year. Trade Ryan. Maybe you do some cap stuff with the team where maybe you take a little bit lesser draft capital, but they take on more contract because you can do some of that around the league to make some of these deals work. The other one is Grady Jarrett. I don't know if he's the best scheme fit for what you guys want to do if you're 2 gapping or gap and a half, and you can create the you do have $7 million dead cap, but it's 16.5.
Here's the thing on that one for me, Nick, is you can't plan around a Dean Pease scheme. Dean Pease has already come out of retirement once.
Yeah.
So Grady Jarrett's a plus player.
Yeah.
Scheme neutral.
Yeah.
And he's a legacy. He's a Falcons legacy.
I just wonder how much
you can't get rid of all the players that have a connection to the fans, and Grady Jarrett has a connection to the fans. And you can't alienate your customers, and getting rid of Grady Jarrett would do that. Plus, he's good. He's really good. But with Dean Pease already coming out of retirement once, he could hang it up tomorrow. I don't want to make plans based on a Dean Pease 3-4.
Yeah, it's the thing for me is that the way the league is trending right now, and obviously you don't want to be the team that is copying the innovators. You want to be the one that's pushing the envelope, right? To be on the front end. But like the 5-0-5 look that we're seeing from the Patriots right now with the heavy cover 1 and press man, we're probably going to start to see that more in the NFL going forward. Grady Jarrett doesn't really fit that because he doesn't have the length or the size to play those multiple gaps. The really heavy cover 2 or 2 deep safety shell usage that we're seeing across the league with the Rams, the Packers, the Chargers, the Broncos, all these teams starting to do that more. Grady Jarrett doesn't really fit that either. So again, you take good players and you fit them, and he's always going to have a role because he can get after the passer. But those single gapping defensive linemen, I think, are they're definitely not the flavor of the month in the NFL. So I totally hear what you're saying. There's the human part of it as well that sometimes I have a hard time with. Where because maybe that's too much Madden in my head. Oh, just trade him, whatever. Fans, they're make believe.
Yeah, so it's not a video
but,
game. You are dealing with people.
Yeah.
And you are dealing with people and relationships.
He's one. If you can get a 3rd round pick for him and save the money, I don't know. I would consider it.
No, it's definitely something you have to consider. You froze up. I'm going to remove you real quick and then come on back in while I get back to this. And Dave, if I didn't say welcome, I apologize. I meant to. And see, we just needed a quick reset. Meant to say good morning, Dave. Appreciate you being here. Take the pain. It's certainly, as a general manager, it's certainly intriguing because, like I said, a lot of that money comes off the books for the 2023 season, and you could go on a massive spending spree. We talk about owners not necessarily mattering that much. That's if you've got a good owner, you take them for granted a little bit.
Yeah.
Having the money wouldn't have mattered if you were old enough to remember the Rankin Smith era. Arthur Blank will spend the money. He will invest in this team. He will go out and come up with big signing bonuses. That's the problem. He had Thomas Dimitroff spending his money like a pissed off ex with a credit card with someone else's credit card. It was just bad. It's really hurt this team, but he will invest in the team. And I like this. And I think it was EJ says, if you were a Falcons GM, what positions would you draft in the first 3 rounds this year? I've got my answer real quick, so I'll let you think about it. Just 3 biggest needs.
Well, the big one is draft good players, #draft good players, because this Falcons team has needs across the board. The only position where I'd be like, maybe you punt on that one is tight end. And that's also because of this class specifically. It's a good tight end class, but there's not one that should be taken in the first 50 picks-ish. So number 1 would have to be edge rusher. This team is that's the second most valuable position in football, in my opinion. And we just talked about how the Falcons are literally, I'm looking at a graphic right now, their grade from PFF pass rush. No team in the NFL. Okay, the lowest teams in the NFL, Broncos, Giants, Lions, Titans, Seahawks are about 65. The Falcons are at about 50. So that's just their pass rushing is, and you can see it on tape too. Their pass rush is so bad. So edge rusher is number 1. You're probably not going to be in Kayvon Thibodeau / name it Aiden Hutchinson range. Those guys are probably going in the top 3, but George Karlaftis is very high. I'm a huge George Karlaftis fan. David Ojabo from Michigan is another one that you could consider as well. Then right across the line there, defensive tackle has to be also up there pretty high. Jordan Davis. I talked with a few people just about the snap count stuff. They made a good point where college games play like 15 to 20 more snaps per game than NFL, so it's not going to be as much of an issue in the NFL as you see in college with the snap percentage.
Yeah, I think the Falcons defenders had 46 snaps.
Yeah, and you see about
no, that was offense. They had 46 snaps on offense in the last game. I'm like, he can play 30 of those.
Yep. Exactly. So since there's less snaps per game in the NFL, then I think you could actually see them maybe lean into that. It really depends on the scheme. Like somebody like Jordan Davis, if he's not he would be a perfect fit for like the Los Angeles Chargers for what they're doing with how bad they are in the run defense. But he makes sense. DeMarvin Leal also, I think he's going to rise back up just because you don't see many guys who are 295, 6'5" with like 34, 35-inch arm length. He did get arrested for marijuana possession. I will see how much that matters for the don't really care about having the marijuana. It's the decision making leading up to the draft.
We talked about that a little bit yesterday. It's not necessarily that he has the weed. It's legal in half the states. I don't really care. I honestly, as an alcoholic myself that's been sober for years and years, I'd rather see somebody smoke a joint than get blottoed drunk. So it doesn't really bother me. But again, it's the decision making when it's against the rules. Don't risk it, dude. Come on. You're talking about eight figures worth of salary you putting on the line here. That's a bad decision. 2 of the best players in the history of this game got knocked down in the draft because of that type of decision, and Randy Moss and Warren Sapp. So hopefully he can turn it around and go that direction.
Yeah. And then the last one is a toss-up for me. You guys know I'm very Moneyball when it comes to the draft because there's no guarantees. So I'm going to use the best data possible and draft positions of value. It's a coin flip between right tackle and cornerback for me. Right tackle, obviously, Caleb McGarry is probably the worst starting right tackle in football. If you draft a right tackle, is he going to obviously be that much better than Caleb McGarry this season?
Yes.
Probably. But it's still a position of upgrade. Cornerback is the other one for me. Because cornerback is a position where you need multiple guys on the field. You're typically it's like the offensive line where historically you're as good as the worst player on that unit, because offenses can target the weakest guy, especially good quarterbacks. So right now, AJ Terrell, he's amazing. You know what? And I really like building on a strength. A lot of people want to draft to address weaknesses. I also like to draft on the strengths because then you can really get a schematic advantage and reduce space. So if you have 2 boundary cornerbacks that are amazing, that could do a lot. The other guy who here's out here in space, just because of hashtag drafted players, Kyle Hamilton. Safety is not super valuable, but I think they're undervalued for what you're getting the return based on the investment. And Hamilton is amazing. He is massive. He can come down and play the box. He can play the slot. And if you're using that safety as a big key player in run fits, which we're seeing more and more of in today's NFL, with the 2 high safety shells and less guys in the boxes, Kyle Hamilton screams downhill and fills gaps in the run game.
And he's an Atlanta kid.
Yes, and he's an Atlanta kid. So he's a special player. He should go in the top 6. He really should.
Real quick, I'm going to sum up because I'm in agreement with Nick on all of this. If I'm the Falcons GM, what position would I draft in the first 3 rounds this year? My first 3 picks, and I've got a first and 2 seconds, would be somewhere I would hope that I could get the best player available, would fit one of these 3 needs, and I could come out with these 3 needs. Edge. If I got 2 of them, I'd be okay with that. Yeah. But edge, corner opposite AJ Terrell, and right tackle. Those are my 3. You're the best player available thing. That gets on my nerves just a little bit because, one, it's subjective and people use it as an end all be all. Well, we took him because he was the best player available. Man, says who? I'll give you 100 to 1 odds, and you put down $100, and I'll give you, what's that, $10,000 that somebody behind that draft pick is going to end up being a better player. So says who? But you don't want to reach. You don't want to go in there and say, okay, we've got to have an edge. We've got to have an edge in the first round. And then the top 5 edge rushers go off in the top 9 picks, and you're picking number 10, and then you reach for a guy. No. If you feel that way, then trade back. Then trade back and accumulate draft picks. But the places on the field where this team can be helped the quickest are right tackle, corner opposite AJ Terrell, and pass rush, edge rusher. Appreciate the question. Something that we're very passionate about, and we'll get into over the course of the next year leading up to the draft and free agency in April and May. Ethan coming back in with a big super says, how do the Falcons line match up in the trenches? The Falcons don't match up with anybody in the trenches. They're behind pretty much the entire league when it comes to trench play. And one of the reasons is they've got 2 gaping holes on the offensive line. And frankly, 2 gaping holes on the defensive line in a 3-man front. In a 5-man front, they've got 4 gaping holes. Dante Fowler's serviceable. Ade Ogundeji, I think I got that one right, is okay. He's a rookie, 4th or 5th round pick out of Texas. But if you look at the offensive line and you look at Caleb McGarry at right tackle is bad. That'll kill an offensive series. 1 play out of 3 where he blows up a play will kill a series. And then you got Jalen Mayfield at left guard, who was actually drafted to put pressure on McGarry at right tackle and is forced into playing left guard, which is probably a better fit for him based on his skill set. But he's a rookie playing at a low level. He can improve. I'm not ready to throw him out, but he shouldn't be out there on a team that's better. He should be a backup getting experience and reps, special teams play, but he's forced into action right now. So you've got 2 gaping holes on the offensive line, and it only takes 1 to kill a play.
Yep.
So offensive line is really bad. Tyler Davison, nose guard, undersized, underproductive. Yeah. Stephen Means at the edge. If he's not the worst ranked edge rusher by PFF, he's 2nd, and I think his backup is 1st. On the other side of things, Dante Fowler, Terry Fontenot got him to take a pay cut, and they're out from under his contract this year. He won't be back at that money. He's been underproductive. Then I don't even know who starts opposite. I can't even think. Between Jonathan Bullard has been in and out of the lineup at the other defensive end in a 3-4 opposite Grady Jarrett. Meh. So they're bad. They're bad in the trenches. Yep. So and the Bills are going to kill them.
Yeah, they're very bad. Again, I have this graphic up here still. Their run blocking, according to PFF, has actually been okay. Their win rate for ESPN is terrible. So that's why I want to look at multiple stats, right? Different things tell you different outcomes, and no singular stat is perfect. But yeah, they're pretty bad. And it says DWI guys meant the Bills in general. Bills are gonna create some issues for the Lions with their length on the edge. AJ Epinesa, Gregory Rousseau, those guys are not in amazing pass rushers, but they have amazing length and they're really good at setting the edge. And then you have Ed Oliver, who's been somewhat a high variance player this year. But if you line up Ed Oliver against, Jalen Mayfield, eventually he's gonna snap him and beat him. So that's concerning. Bills' offensive line has not been very good this season, especially their guards. They can't run the ball worth a lick. So maybe that's going to help the Falcons somewhat keep this game close, unless Josh Allen is on fire. They put so much on Josh Allen to win these games. It's a little bit ridiculous, and he can, but he's again still a decently high variance player. But yeah, the Bills are probably going to win this game. What do you think the spread's going to be? Have you seen it? It's probably got to be at least
14 and a half.
14 and a half. I was going to say 10.
Yeah. So
anything
the
in 10
Falcons
in the NFL.
go through the entire year with basically not getting anybody on the COVID list. And now it's following a league trend and getting everybody. And frankly, when I look at this game and I see the Atlanta Falcons traveling to Buffalo in January against a matchup where you just hope nobody gets hurt. Coach, I'm not feeling so good today.
In here, Scott. It's not the hand.
Coach, I'm not feeling so good today. Feeling like I got symptoms. It's a bad matchup. Ray coming in. I like this question, Ray. Do you guys think if Ridley played, we'd be in the playoffs? And you know what? That's my initial reaction. No way. But wait a minute. Let's assume, and you can't always make this assumption, but let's just assume you didn't lose any more games with Ridley on the field. Ridley's playing at a high level. Do you beat Washington with Calvin Ridley playing? And I mean Calvin Ridley playing at last year's level, not at what we saw this year.
I just don't know what it looks like.
Game that you had Washington beat. Yeah. You had them beat at home. Got uber conservative, and the defense couldn't hold up. Maybe. Okay? Maybe. Yeah. How about Halloween against the Panthers when you couldn't move the ball, when he bailed out on the team that day, Sunday the 31st of October, and you still only lost 19-13 after getting bullied at the trenches? Maybe.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden 7-8 is 9-6, and you are in the playoffs.
Yeah, maybe.
So Ray, maybe with a true number one, as bad as this schedule is, as bad as the NFL is in the middle, maybe. Absolutely. It is certainly possible.
I am curious what he would look like in this offense with the space and where he played with Julio Jones last year versus where Pitts is being utilized and how complementary those guys are. But there's definitely a chance. That said, you would be a team that you're talking about the 14-point spread. I think that might be possible for your first matchup in the playoffs as well. Because
you're not a contender. No. But you just says, do you think you make the playoffs?
Yeah, if anything, it's an argument against the 7th seed. No offense.
Of course.
Yeah,
you don't need to get me started on the forced parity of the NFL, but I think I think there's 12 or 13 teams between 7-8 and 8-7 this year. Or are we at 9? Was that 16 games? We got 2 games left. Between 7-8 and 8-7. There's like 13 teams, and they're all bad. They're bad. This forced parity just means you've got a bad product on the field, and you end up with no shows in the league. And it's just bad football. All right, get off my lawn. But maybe, Ray, yes.
Yep, there are 12.
Could he have turned those other 2 games around? Now, the other games against the good teams that are on your schedule, you weren't beating the Eagles in the trench. They just whipped you in the trenches. You weren't beating the Buccaneers either time. You weren't beating the Cowboys. You weren't beating the 49ers. You're not beating the Bills. Those are still losses. But you lose this game. And I'm sorry, but you look at this matchup, and if I look at, I had this somewhere. I had the Buffalo Bills by points, offensive rank 3rd, defensive rank 3rd. Their point differential is number 1 in the NFL. So they've done, Nick mentioned high variance. They've probably dropped a couple games they shouldn't have, but this is the team this is a playoff type team. They're like, all right, we're serious now. Now we're going to focus. And if they're focused, it's going to be bad. it's going to be Cowboys bad, like 31-3 bad.
Yep.
And that's kind of, I mean, I understand that. I just, man, I want everybody to come back healthy. I really do, because they're totally outmatched on the road in this game. And you're playing, and God knows what the weather can be. It could be 70 degrees for God's sakes. But it could also be negative 20 in a snowstorm, which would actually help. But I want them to come back healthy. That's my goal for this game. I don't want to see anybody get hurt, because they are so outmanned in this game.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the Falcons are a lot like Denver, where you're at right now in the draft is about as high as you're going to probably get, because there's only one team. So talk about the teams that have 7 or 8 wins. There's 12. I just counted. There's only one team in the NFL that has 6 wins in Washington Football Team, and you're going to have to lose 2 games with teams that are sitting there with 5 wins. The Seahawks, the Panthers, the Bears. 2 of those teams don't own their own pick. That would have to lose those 2 or win those 2 games, while the Falcons lose their 2 games. So probably not going to get them up higher. Probably not much higher than 9th overall, given that. But still, that's kind of where we're at, and that just shows. I mean, Broncos could still make the playoffs, or they could be picking as high as 6 overall. Probably not happening, but that's where we're at right now. Keith Robbins, can you guys give your opinions on the situation with Ridley?
So I know, Nick, you had some stuff to do. You said you wanted to get out at 45. We're at 45 right now. So you let me know what you think on this, then I'm going to turn you loose.
For sure. My opinions on Ridley, you talk about offsetting Matt Ryan's dead cap hit. This is a guy that I think I would be looking to trade for 2023 second round pick or something like that, where obviously you're going to be worse without him, but he's already going to be 27. He's on the last year of his contract, and this team, again, in 2022, I don't think you are competing for titles looking at what this roster looks like. So if I
can't get anything for him right now,
you don't think you can even get a 2023?
I don't think you can get anything for him right now.
Well, maybe there's conditional picks that are available, and it could be in a 2023 situation where it depends on what he looks like in 2022. But you can save yourself, $11 million? That can help with some of the Matt Ryan dead cap hit. So again, I'm very much a rip the Band-Aid off. And this also has to do with how good I think that top of the 2023 class is. If you can bounce off the bottom in 2022, and it's not a 1 quarterback draft class. You have CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, and then Will Anderson, who is unbelievable edge rusher, Myles Garrett tier athlete. Like he's incredible. I'm serious. He is.
2023 might be 2022 might be the year to tank.
Yeah, Will Anderson is incredible. So that would be my opinion with the Ridley. You save yourself some cap, you get yourself a little bit more capital, young cost controlled guys, and you bounce off hard in 2022. But that's as far as his mental health goes, I don't know the dude. I haven't walked in his shoes, and I think that we could all do a little bit better in this world to not judge people if we don't know their situations. So I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. It's frustrating, of course, but again, I don't know what he's dealing with, his struggles, his life. So I hope nothing but the best for him, because he's in a situation where he can make a big impact in this world, a positive impact in this world, and I hope he can get himself right so he can do that.
All right. Well, Nick, appreciate you being here. Have a good day, and I will see you tomorrow morning on Mile High Huddle on Broncos for Breakfast.
Yep. Amen. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one, guys, and go Broncos. Go Falcons.
No, you can't sign off like that. Go Chelsea.
Go Chelsea. Let's do that. Yeah, let's go Chelsea.
You say go Chelsea. Keith, I'll get into this a little bit. One, what Nick just said is I don't have all the information on Calvin Ridley in order to make a guess. Oh, he's given up on his teammates and he's quit the team. Blah blah blah. No. I don't know that. He could have had some concussions. A couple of guys that were close to home. I didn't watch, but these guys I covered in high school both killed themselves. Paul Oliver, University of Georgia, went to the Chargers. Kenny McKinley, South Cobb High School, not too far from here. Both of those were 2 of my first classes, like in 04 and 05. Concussion related mental health issues. God forbid, I do not want anything like that happening. And if it's anything in the realm of that, I don't want to see him, on Instagram losing it like we saw with Everson Griffin earlier this year. That's the stuff that if it's anywhere near that, then God bless, take care of yourself. That's my thoughts. I don't have all the information. I'm not going to pass judgment on him. Now, what I had said earlier in the year was the NFL needs to provide some relief to the teams so that they can still support these guys without being competitively disadvantaged. I don't want to gain a competitive advantage on the Minnesota Vikings because Everson Griffin is having an episode where he's got a gun in his hand and he thinks someone's in his house. I don't want to win that way. So the Falcoholic, I don't remember the author's name, but I will. It was the Falcoholic, and you can Google it. Did a great, what happens? What are the options here? And it's basically exactly what I had lobbied for, which is you can get some relief on his contract, meaning you can still pay him, but you don't have to move him forward. So it's like cutting him would be bad news. You can't do that. That's a PR move mess that you don't want. But he's not that expensive. He's still on the last year of his rookie contract right now. With the option is next year. So he's on 1.7 million, I think. So pay him out. It's the next year where that cap hit becomes 12 million. It comes 11 and change on his option. I don't think anybody in their right mind would think that he's justified to have $12 million if he's not playing next year. And maybe even if he is. So there's a chance the Falcons could just vest this year, could take this year and move it forward because he didn't play enough in order to move forward. And he could play on 1.7 and try and earn the money coming back. Or if he comes back, you can say, okay, we're going to give you the option. Welcome back. Here's your 11 million, which still isn't that much money for the type of player that he can be, but they're not obligated to it. They're not obligated to do that. So if they just move his contract forward from this year to next year at 1.7 million, while if he's not playing, and that helps support him get the help he needs, or it gets him out of the spot that he's in, okay, so be it. But I don't think anybody thinks he's justified to a 6 times raise not playing football. I don't think that's fair. So that's what I think. That's my opinion from both his point of view and from the Falcons' point of view. Is they have options, and they have options with Ridley that wouldn't cut him loose, but wouldn't tie them to his big raise. And I think that's about as much as we can ask for. Joe comes in and says, with a generous super, says, I don't think they'll do this, but trading draft picks back in years, not in rounds, can gain you a lot of capital. GMs rarely have patience, but I think big problems require big solutions. You're right. It's if you trade out of the first round and you pick up, let's say you got somebody with 2 first rounders in 2023 and you trade completely out of the first round. You're like, man, that sucks. But I'll tell you what, this one stung. This one stung, and I'll give you an Atlanta Falcons example. Coming off the 1998 Super Bowl season against the Denver Broncos, the Falcons were 14-2. They had a pretty good tight end at the time, and what the Falcons did was they traded their so this is a 1999 draft. They traded their 2000 first-round pick to the Baltimore Ravens for their second-round pick in 1999. It was at the top of the second round, and they used it to draft tight end Reggie Kelly out of Mississippi State. Reggie Kelly had a decent career as a blocking tight end, made kind of the Lee Smith role for the Falcons now. Lee Smith's been in the league a long time, and has a nice job and a good role. That the Falcons, Jamal Anderson blew out his knee early in 1999, and that number 1 that they traded to the Ravens ended up being, I think, the 5th overall pick. So they traded Reggie Kelly for the number 5 overall pick. You know who they used in that pick? The Ravens did. They took Jamal Lewis, an Atlanta kid. I think he went to Douglas High School in Atlanta before going to Tennessee. 4'3" guy, 240 pounds, rushed for over 1,000 yards for a bunch of teams. Meanwhile, Jamal Lewis blows out his knee, and you lost the rights to Jamal Lewis. So if someone's willing to overpay like that, Joe, I agree with you 100%. When you're a team like this and you need the picks, take them. Because 2023 for the Falcons really is it's not next year. They don't have the draft cap. They don't have the money to invest in free agency, but 2023 could be the year that this. I don't know if they've hit bottom yet, honestly. They're pushing at 500 right now. It could be a little worse next year. 2023 is, I think, when that check mark starts going back up. EJ coming in. Scott, do you think the Falcons will draft a playmaker with Ridley's skills in the draft or get a free agent wide receiver in the offseason? Ridley's skills are fairly rare. I don't know if they'll be able to get a guy that is his lateral quickness, he's not that fast, but his lateral quickness is great, and he's got tremendous hands. Good body control. He's not that big. Do the Falcons need to get a wide receiver in this draft? Yes. I poked fun a little bit at, I want to say Sean McVay, not Sean McVay. Sean, the guy from ESPN that works with the draft, having him take Jamison Williams at wide receiver in the top 10. Like, they cannot take a wide receiver in this draft. Until they fix the other positions, a wide receiver is going to be wasted. He might be the best player available, but unless he is so far above everybody else, you cannot take a wide receiver that high. Trade down if you don't think the guy's there. But they have to, EJ. They have to come out of this draft and free agency with a wide receiver, because Russell Gage is a 3 or 4 at best. Solid player. I like him as a 3. I don't like him as a 1. I don't like him as a 1. I don't like him really as a 2. I like him as a slot guy in the 3, where he can be a nice third option, fourth option if you count Kyle Pitts at tight end. And he can play in Atlanta for a long time, but he's not good enough to be a 1 or a 2. So they've got to get a wide receiver or 2, probably 2 wide receivers coming out. Let me this is a good question for Bronco Jedi. Scott, how would you grade your past draft evaluations? Who are the top 3 hits or misses? I didn't do draft nearly as much as I did recruiting. But I think one of the ones I was most vocal about was Matt Ryan. At the time, before they changed it, they say the highest paid guy in the NFL was usually the first quarterback drafted in the draft that year. So you got a rookie quarterback who's the highest paid guy in the NFL. That was insane. So if you missed on that player, you were screwed. You got the highest paid player who hasn't played a down. Picture the New York Jets right now, and picture Zach Wilson being the highest paid player in the NFL. Didn't work. So I was like, you're better off, especially as the way people trade. Again, going back to Joe's point about people trading up, and if you trade back, how much you can get for trading back. I was like, you could draft 4 quarterbacks for the number 3 pick. It turned out to be the right pick for sure in that spot. I could go on forever on my misses in college football recruiting, hits and misses on those guys. So far in this draft, though, I was very vocal about Spencer Brown, and he lasted all the way to an offensive tackle, right tackle out of Northern Iowa. He lasted all the way to the end of the 3rd round, so close to the 100th pick. And I think I was very vocal that he should have been picked higher. I thought he could have gone as high as a 1st round. I did talk about Joe. I did talk about Seth Williams, hoping that he could be somebody for the Denver Broncos, but I wasn't overly high on him. And I think he's just talking about big guys that the Falcons could end up getting, not necessarily hits and miss on the draft. But before we get out of here, and I'll talk a little bit more. Good morning, Muhammad. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you being here, dude. Good morning. We'll get back into some of the questions, but since I put it in the title, I did want to talk about Dan Quinn as a potential head coach. Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator, had some very high profile losses. None more high profile than the historic loss in the Super Bowl. We all know about that one. We won't get into that one too much. We also, sorry, real quick. Juan Castillo says, you didn't miss with Spencer. No, I consider that a hit. I do. I really do, Juan. Say that I consider that one as far as a guy that should have been drafted higher, that I was very high on, that I think should have drafted higher. In hindsight, was going to say he should have been drafted higher. I consider Spencer a hit right now. As far as, this is a guy that should have gone as high as a 1st round, and he's starting right tackle for the Buffalo Bills. We'll get a good look at him this week. Just a freak of an athlete. And at the Senior Bowl, he was just manhandling guys. But let me get back into Dan Quinn, and I'm not going to look at the chat because I'm 3/4 OCD and I'll get distracted. But Dan Quinn, I put the failings of the Falcons and their inability to hold on to a lead, in their inability to kill games when they're on their good run. Because frankly, the 2000s and early, what do you call the 10s? Do we call these the teens? 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. That's basically the golden era of Atlanta Falcons football. So even on this good run, they're still blowing leads and can't hold on, can't kill games off. I'm a personnel guy. I lay that at the feet of Thomas Dimitroff. His inability to value the lines of scrimmage, defense, when it mattered the most, and it started with one of his very first moves. And because Julio Jones ended up being so good, he didn't get nearly the stick that he should have for making that trade. Let's rewind the clock. And you've got the Atlanta Falcons getting blown out at home, as I think they were the number 1 seed at the time, by the Green Bay Packers. The Packers hung 50 on them at the Dome. And this is 2010 playoffs. They didn't force a punt. Give up 50 points and don't force a punt. You go to the draft the next year, and what is your response? You give up 5. Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 high picks, including 2 number 1s, in order to move up in the draft to take a wide receiver. Wide receiver. After you just gave up 50, are you out of your mind? Now, hindsight was fairly kind to Dimitroff on this. One, because Julio Jones was really good. He was. You overpaid for him, but he was really good. And 2, because you traded that pick to a dysfunctional Cleveland Browns team who couldn't draft anybody. If you sent those 5 picks to the Patriots or Steelers, they probably would have turned them into 10 picks, and you got both lines of scrimmage covered for Julio Jones. Fast forward a couple more years, and you go to the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game. Julio Jones has about $180 and 2 touchdowns. He's everything you ever could have wanted. Falcons lose that game because they can't run the ball and they can't stop anybody. That was Thomas Dimitroff in a nutshell, and it started early. When they fired Mike Smith, you go look at Falcons history for coaches. Mike Smith is way, way at the top. Way at the top. I think there's only 2 winning coaches in the history of this franchise. Mike Smith's way at top in winning percentage. They fired him. They should have fired Dimitroff. When they didn't, like, dude, this guy's untouchable. How is this happening? So Dan Quinn comes in with a defensive mind, and they don't give him any defensive players. They ignore the lines of scrimmage. They overpay. They draft Calvin Ridley again. They're going after they until it was too late. Until it was too late. After you'd missed a lot of your window and lost a lot of these guys, most of the guys you went after on defense didn't pan out. So Dan Quinn's defense in Atlanta wasn't very good. Guess what? He wasn't getting any help. He wasn't getting any help from his general manager. I said that Thomas Dimitroff drafted and built a team as if he was the agent for a 7-on-7 quarterback. Because I'm going to get my agent paid. I'm going to get my client paid, and I'm going to get him a bunch of skill players. That's what I'm going to do. So Dan Quinn was handicapped by his general manager in Atlanta. Now, was he perfect? No. He had some very high-profile gaffes, especially in his last season, blowing games that were statistically impossible to lose. But did he learn from that? Yeah, he did. Do I think he can be a good head coach in this league? Absolutely. Why? Because guys want to play for him, for one thing. One, he's a good coach. I think we've seen that on the defensive side of the ball through Seattle, making chicken salad out of chicken in Atlanta. What he's done with the Dallas defense this year, the man can coach, and guys want to play for him. My question on this, and I never really gotten into too much about the offensive guy or a defensive guy until watching Dan Quinn. Then I got it. Then I get it a little bit. Offensive coordinators, if they're good, get hired as head coaches quickly. So you've got to replace your offensive coordinator if he's good the next year. You watch what happens with Dan Quinn. Now, for me, Dan Quinn's biggest mistake with the Atlanta Falcons was coming off that Super Bowl season. Number 1 offense, Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan gets hired away. Biggest mistake he made was handing the keys to Steve Sarkisian, who'd never been an offensive coordinator and had very high-profile troubles in the past. And he had never been an offensive coordinator in the NFL and handed the keys to him. The Falcons from 2016 to 2017 had the biggest statistical drop-off in the history of a number 1 offense. That was Dan Quinn's biggest mistake. Did he correct it? Nope. He didn't. Steve Sarkisian came back for another year, and they started off, I think, 0-7. 1-7, somewhere in that neighborhood. 0-6, 1-7. That was Dan Quinn. So if he's got a fatal flaw, it was almost loyal to a fault, to a guy that was underqualified, that wasn't qualified for the position. With players, that has worked very well. Players love him. They absolutely love Dan Quinn, and they will go to bat for him. They will play for him. And there's going to be several teams looking for head coaches. Jacksonville has put in a request for an interview. I believe he will be a head coach next year in 2022, and I believe he will be a good head coach again. I think he will have learned from his mistakes. It's not easy to be a head coach in Atlanta. Like I said, there's only 2 with winning records in the history of this franchise. I think 2. Mike Smith being one of them. And it's not easy to be a head coach of this franchise. We're not talking about the Dallas Cowboys or 49ers or some of these blue-blooded teams. So he was successful as the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, and he will be successful again. Let me see here. I'm going to go through the chat here after we said good morning to Muhammad. Good morning, Muhammad. And Jeremy comes in and says, Scott, if you were picking the Broncos' next coach, Dan Quinn or Kellen Moore? Ooh, that's a tough one. I'd probably rather go with Dan Quinn than Kellen Moore right now, just because of the experience and the respect factor. You've got a fairly veteran team. You need the quarterback. You need the offensive coordinator. Could you get a good offensive coordinator coming in, a Kellen Moore-like type of hire? Yeah, you could, because Dan Quinn's a good guy to work for. So you're going to come in and he's going to have, autonomy to run his offense. Dan Quinn I think he'll be respected more by the veterans on a team like the Broncos, an older team coming up. Now, if I'm the Jacksonville Jaguars and I've got a team that's at the bottom looking to come up, I might go Kellen Moore. I might go in a different direction. I've already got my quarterback. I want these two to grow together. But if I'm a team that's close, has a really good roster, a good core of veterans, I probably want to go with the veteran coach on that one. Good question, though. Julio contributed heavily to what should have been a championship. Absolutely. Should have. Why wasn't it? You couldn't stop anybody. You couldn't run the ball when you had to. Thanks, Thomas. But yeah, he did. Julio Jones is the best Falcon ever in the history of this game. That's one of the reasons why Thomas Dimitroff didn't get as much flack. And by then, 2016, they'd had 6 years to try and correct some of those mistakes. But that Falcons defense, I think, was 26th in the league that they went to the Super Bowl. It just kind of started clicking. Vic Beasley turned into a beast for 1 year. Had a 1 year flash in the pan season and had about 16 or 17 sacks. And it really all came together until it all fell apart. That was a good Falcons team, the tail end of that season. Let me get through here. Absolutely. Oh, Joe coming in with a super. Got to run. Great show, Scott. Joe, thank you so much. Certainly appreciate you being here and the contributions. Dan Quinn, Clee coming in. Okay, so there were more than one. Clee went and looked it up for me. He's helping out. So Mike Smith, 66 and 46. That's by far the best. Jim Mora kind of lost control of the team. The team was undisciplined. Had a good run. Like I said, that was kind of the golden age right there. Mike Smith, Jim Mora to Dan Quinn. Lehman Bennett, I remember him, solid in the 80s. And Dan Quinn, 43 and 42. Shows you how good he started when he had 2 seasons where he finished 1-7, and then he was off to another 1-6 start. So they were out of the playoffs by Halloween. So 2 years in a row. But the reason why he was brought back in the last year was because the players went and fought for him. He said, "Listen, this is on us." Now, I put a lot of it at the feet of the general manager for building this team completely unbalanced. And now 2 years later, you see where this team is, and it's not pretty. On that note, guys, I think we hit all the topics we wanted to. And appreciate y'all being here. Thanks, Nick, for being here as always. Joe, Clee, Ethan, DWI guys, appreciate the supers. And if I missed one of you, I apologize. But appreciate your support of the show. We will be back here next Wednesday. Let's see, that's probably the 5th already, January 5th. I have a feeling we're going to be talking a little bit more draft because, again, my preview of the Falcons at Buffalo Bills is this one's going to be ugly. They don't match up at all with this team, and it's on the road. It's bad weather. Depth has been decimated by the reserve COVID list. It's just going to be bad. Try not to paint what you've seen from this season based on this game because it's going to be a tough one. But then we're going to come back next week and we're going to start looking heavy into draft. And we got a chance for the Falcons to sweep the Saints and finish 8-9 with a sweep over the Saints, 3-3 in the division. That'd be a pretty darn good year. On that note, Happy New Year, everybody. And I will see some of y'all on Mile High Huddle tonight and tomorrow morning for Broncos for Breakfast. And we'll be back here on All Falcons next Wednesday. But thank you for being here. And we appreciate your support. And we'll see you next time.